we're going to move to the Indiana boy who unfortunately unalived himself after dealing with relentless bullying. Now, this boy was 10 years old. It's going to be from the New York Post here. I'll go and swing it over to this. And you can see it here. Indiana boy, it was after he suffered horrific bullying. The parents say they complained to the school 20 times. Now, right off the rip, when the parents say they complained to the school 20 times, I wouldn't have gotten to 20. There's no way. I wouldn't have gotten to 20 because probably by like eighth time, if they still wouldn't have been doing anything, this is how I'm thinking too. By the second or third time, I'm telling my boy, like, who are these people? Like, who is bullying you? Who are these kids? And I'm going to make a specific instance to be like, hey, like, get a hold of the teacher, get a hold of the staff, get a hold of whoever I can, right? Guidance counselor, principal, vice principal. It don't matter, HR, whatever. Because some of these schools are bigger. I went to a small school, so it might be different. And I'm going to be like, these are the names. My boy said this and this and this and this. There's not a chance on this planet that you can't tell me that you can't keep these boys separated from each other. There's no reason that you can't be watching them, keep an extra eye out, yada, yada, yada. Now, the fact that it went to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, somebody's lying, right? Because if the parents complain 20 times, that means that the school, and if the parents are honest, that means the school is just going like, oh yeah. And they don't care, right? Or the other instance is that the parents didn't complain to the school 20 times, and maybe they didn't do anything at all. And maybe the reality is that they're like, oh, hey, like, we'll just let, oh, he'll get over it. Or man up. Or maybe they just didn't think he was, or maybe they thought he was being dramatic or dramatizing what was actually happening to him. Especially, I guess, if he's not coming home with bruises and things like that. But that was what I first thought when I walked into this or read the story. So I went ahead and I was like, let me go ahead and go to the local news reporting about this. And so the school, and I'll show you this here in a second, the school is claiming that the parents never filed a bullying report, but said they were in contact with the parents numerous times, but are not at liberty to share the content of those conversations. So let me go here because I think this is what I had it pulled up on. We'll just go straight to the New York Post. So I did have a little clip I wanted to show as well. It's at the back end of this. So this is the local news report. I hate that I have to watch an ad. I apologize, guys.
In the town of Greenfield, east of Indianapolis,
So let's just take this a watch. It's going to be probably like, it's like two and a half minutes. Just listen to this. It's at the very tail end of when they're going to open up and they're going to show like the little, they're going to show like a couple emails between the parents and the school counselor. And I just found it was wildly underreported for the backlash that the story is getting. So we'll just take a listen here.
Fourth grader is dead. His parents say he took his own life because of relentless bullying.
Earlier in our 5 o'clock hour, you heard from the little boy's parents. Now hear from his grandmother, who lives in Huntington. 21 Alive reporter Amelia Miles is live now in studio with more.
Yeah, Heather and Linda, this is 10-year-old Sammy Toish. His family says he was spontaneous and had a bright smile that was hard to miss. But on May 5th, that all went away. Sammy Toish, a 10-year-old boy who lived in Greenfield.
I don't know, he's just as pure as snow.
Cynthia is Sammy's grandmother. She says she received a text to call her son right away.
He was distraught and he told me Sammy was gone. And I'm like speechless.
His family said Sammy died by suicide Sunday morning on May 5th. According to Sammy's family, he was being bullied up until the night before he died. They say it started last year in elementary school and continued this year at Greenfield Intermediate School.
People trust their kids. They entrust their kids to the schools. But now that trust is breaking down.
What started as words, his family says, eventually turned physical. Tweese tells me her son talked with the school more than 20 times about the bullying.
That they can't just say they have zero tolerance, because that doesn't mean they're zero tolerance about bullies. Their zero tolerance means that they don't have any responsibility for it.
Right here, move myself back up here, right? You can see this. I'm gonna move my big head out of the way. Yeah, I'll just take myself off, right? So you can see here it says, "Hi, Dr. Allen. This is Chase Hooley with WTHR." So this is the reporter. "Would you have time to talk to me today to discuss claims made by the Sammy family that he was bullied by students? The family claims they spoke to the principal on 20 different occasions regarding the bullying the past 2 years. The most recent being last week when he was followed into the bathroom by a group of kids. Then prior to that, there was another altercation on the bus." And then they guess they're also looking to see where the kids reprimanded who were, and if those parents of those kids were also notified.
Greenfield Superintendent Dr. Harold Olin sent a statement saying,
But in this statement, look at this. So this is their response, okay? And I believe this is the principal or the vice principal. "I am not in Greenfield currently. I have a meeting in Indy. I will be back in Greenfield later this afternoon, yet I have another meeting scheduled upon my return. Therefore, a phone call will not work. I can try to answer some questions via email and or text. I can already tell you there were some errors in what you shared from the parent summary. The student was a 4th grade student, so he was only at the school for less than 1 year. 2, I have combed through the entries for the student, and bullying is not a theme that is noted. The school's administrators and counselor have had regular conversation with the family throughout the year, though I am not at liberty to share the content of those conversations. This is why, and I'm serious, this is why I think like somebody has to be lying. The grandma clearly was like, she clearly was tuned in on what was happening too. So she had to have been in contact with the parents. At least it seems to be that way, right? And this, we're going to do a little bit of like investigation work, right? Even if he was a 4th grade student, okay, that doesn't mean that he just transferred there that year. I'm assuming this is like one of those breaks where like they must separate the 3rd grade students, like, you know, it's K through 3 and then 4 through 8 or something like that. It could be one of those weird breakups. That doesn't mean that the kids who were bullying him didn't transfer and go up in grade with him, right? Like that just means like it was happening in the campus over there, not at his specific school. To be fair, this is a small note. When he says he's combed to the entries for the student and bullying's not noted, somebody's lying, dude. Right? Like either the principal, and especially the way the response here is like a phone call won't work. Here's my half-assed statement of like what this is going on. It's like you had a 10-year-old just like unalived himself, and this is the level of care that's going on with the. I just like it's just gross to me, right? And I don't want to show the little bit too of the parents crying because that just like it makes me angry for a couple of reasons, but it does just bother me that like this is even a topic of news. Like this is even a thing happening. But to go back to this, right? The school's administrators and counselors have had regular conversations with the family throughout the year. Pause. Whose parents has regular communication outside of like, oh, hey, or the parent-teacher meetings, right? Like the only times my parents were coming in and having like regular conversations with the guidance counselor was because like I was on the verge of being suspended and possibly expelled. It wasn't because like they're in there, like they just walk in and because they work down the road and they're like, oh man, it's like, no, dude, it's generally for a reason, right? Like most parents and most people have like too many things on their plate to be making regular stops into the school to just have random conversations if it wasn't about something that was actually important. I'm keen and I'm going to take the parent side on this, given the information that we see and what we have. This makes me think that the school is just blatantly lying. And it makes me think that it's probably exactly what the grandma said. It's probably that they just don't care. You know, they do the song and dance of like zero tolerance for bullying, da-da-da. No note of a theme that of bullying. This means that like even if the parents and clearly the bullying happened, right? Like no 10-year-old just goes out and is like, I don't want to live anymore. I mean, obviously with some level of indoctrination, right? But it's such a foreign idea to a kid. But to get to that level of a dark place as a 10-year-old to then go through with it is like, what is what is this cultural rot of these of a 10-year-old in Indiana of all places, right? Like a very notoriously kind of like Midwest. It's not people. It falls red naturally. It's not like a very very like hot spot for the liberal arts places. It may possibly that's changing with the fact that you can't escape from social media and different things like that, and it's always going to be an active force. But to not be at the liberty to share the content of those conversations. I just have zero respect for it. I have just reading upon this email to think that if this was the way that these things went down is just such a smoking gun for why you would never want to be involved with public school anyways. Because listen to this, say even if the parents didn't talk to the counselors whatsoever, right? The fact that he even put the second point, which he was said he combed through the entries for the student, meaning that the teachers and the guidance counselors and the staff members are probably keeping notes, right? Like he might be antsy when doing this, or like he might be da-da-da. But you don't see any of the bullying, right? Like no bus driver, especially because it said that prior altercation happened on the bus. The bus driver didn't say anything. The bus driver wasn't asked about kids fighting each other. I mean, maybe this is the level that we reached, and it's just like if kids rough each other up, they just are like, I don't care. It's too much paperwork. It's too much. I don't want to even deal with it. And if that's the case, and I mean, I don't think anyone has an argument ever at all to go into public school. These people are just like demons, dude. And to think too, like, what is this principal doing? Like, what meetings do you have in India? Like, isn't your job to be a principal for the school? I would think if a principal of a high school had an instance where one of his students did this, would you not expect the principal to then be dropping everything he was doing to then go and address and investigate and understand what was? I guess not. I guess that's not the world that we live in. I guess I have been the one who's naive to think that there would possibly be some level of like vigilance when it comes to ensuring kids' safety, and that the people who are put in the positions to protect and ensure and align, the direction and the orientation and the security of the school would be concerned with those things. But maybe I'm the retarded one. Maybe I'm the one who's just sitting here just so dumb for thinking that people would actually do the things that they are paid to do. Possibly. It wouldn't be the first time I'd be an idiot about something. And we'll just finish this out, but there was one final point, and I don't believe it's in this video, but we'll let this video play out. Let me go ahead and flip it back here.
There was no bullying report ever submitted by the parents or the student, but he also said the school's administrators and counselor had regular conversations with the family throughout the year, but he wouldn't share the content of those conversations.
Really close to his mom.
As Sammy's family prepares for his funeral, his grandma has one last thing to say.
I just always told him, I said, Grandpa, and I love you so much. Mother was really distraught, and my heart goes out to her and all mothers who've lost a child.
Now, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. If you or someone you know needs help, we included a list of resources in this story on our website. That's 21alivenews.com. Reporting in studio, Amelia Miles, 21 Alive News.
Okay, thank you so much, Amelia.
Okay, so that's it for that. It's always like some ad. It's always got to be some ridiculous ad. Okay, let me pull this back here. Let me get my face back on screen because I messed that up. Wow. Okay, so this is the little screenshot I wanted to show you here. Let me just pull this over. This was from the article. So if you go to the New York Post, and you go to where this article was at, this is the one that I had pulled up, which is on that initial tweet that I had just shared to begin with. I'm just going to read this, and you tell me why this isn't being talked about, or why. I guess to me, this was like some kind of like scathing level of news to be read in. I see somebody chatted, but let me change this here. Looks like it censored it, so you can put another chat in there. I don't know what they do to censor stuff. It's kind of wild. But it says here, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. According to the CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 14, both nationally and in Indiana. 10 to 14. However, in terms of suicide rates, it is the lowest among all ages. That is incredible. Yeah, like our suicide problem's not that bad. I mean, look, the 10 to 14-year-olds are only killing themselves at 2%. What? A CDC National Center for Health Statistics data brief, which analyzed suicide from 2001 to 2021, reported, so over a 20-year period, although rates were lowest for those aged 10 to 14, this group experienced the largest percentage increase over this period, from 0.6 in 2001 to 2.3 in 2021. That's insane. That is quite literally insane. Now, if I'm correct, the way I'm reading this, dude, is that 2.3% of all people in this nation aged 10 to 14, they take themselves out. Now, I could be wrong, and this could be the separation by deaths, right? But I don't think that. I would imagine there would be a much larger percentage if it was separating it by death. That's insane. So in 20 years, I mean, a 2% increase in 20 years now isn't whoa. I mean, to me, I think it's whoa. Insane. Why? And then to think that like it's the lowest among all ages. So you're telling me that 5 through 9-year-olds kill themselves more than 10 to like what? What? I mean, I know that we're all well aware of the child suicide epidemic or the male suicide epidemic, but children? And I would like to know how this was separated. I didn't see it was separated by gender. And this is where I pulled it off the New York Post. But I'll pull this back. Oh, of course it's going to do that. It always does that where it doesn't sit still. Okay. I think that's ridiculous, dude. I think if you're asking me, that's insane. Oh, let's see from Michael S. If you are sending your children to public school in this day and age, you are complicit in their abuse. And I agree. I agree completely. I'm not sure for people who are on the low financial end, what options you really have when you're forced in a bad spot between like homeschooling or paying to get somebody into private school, like, or maybe charter school possibly. But I mean, at this point, I agree 100%. Like if you send your kid to public school, oh my gosh, I can't talk. Amidst all of this going on, it's just like, you are an abuser. And that's the other point too, is like, say the parents did complain 20 times straight. There's no way you should have let it get to 20 times. At like the third time, you should have realized like this school is clearly not going to do anything about what's happening. And they should have been like, hey, like we're out of here, dude. We have to go somewhere else. Like you are actively refusing to protect my child, and we can't rely on you anymore. And they should have went to a different school. Now, is a different public school any better? I mean, I'm sure there's better. Obviously, there's better public schools than other public schools. But it's tough, especially for people who are in financial situations. It's like, what do you do, right? and that's a poor way to look at it too. But you have to value your children's lives over how much money you're making. You know, like you have to not care about the public perception of like, oh, I live in this small house, but I have 4 kids. Like, who cares what people think about you, dude? It's more important that your child is like the quality of life of your children is not them being bullied relentlessly because you're spending every single day, 10 hours at work, not paying attention to what's going on in their lives. And another one here from Michael saying the U.S. Department of Education estimates that 1 in 10 children experiences some form of sexual misconduct by school employees. That's also something I've seen a lot of. I think I covered it not the last episode, but 2 episodes ago. The sharp rise in female women sexual abusers. There's been plenty of instances of women who are, married, just about to get married, or just recently newlyweds and making out with a fifth grader. To me, that's like what I had said initially was like, to me, that's the sign of like, these are the initial signs of the rat utopia experiment, like the beautiful ones. And it's these people who even have, like these girls, for example, who are teachers, they went through school, they got college, they're going to get married, like they have everything. And it's somehow not enough. They somehow had to reach out to this final tail end of a polarized, hypersexualized world because something deep and evil and disgusting in their head was telling them, like, that's what you want to do. This is what will make you feel happy. This is what will make you feel better. This is what you should do. And it's touching kids. Like, and to be fair, it's not all just being driven by women. A lot of this has always been upheld by, with men doing awful things, being allowed to be in these positions of power in the school. And for whatever reason, and it's not for whatever reason, this is for the, it's because we live in the fallen world. We live in a fallen world where, people care more about feeding the flesh than they do care about feeding the spirit. And so people do disgusting, evil things. That's the best explanation I can give you, is that people are evil by nature. And those who don't repent and don't reach out and do everything they can to love and know and see the truth of Jesus Christ, this is what all they can ever really amount to. Like, sure, they can not do such egregious and devastating things like this, but if you're orienting your life around just worldly things, what was it worth to gain the soul or gain the world just to lose your soul? And it's just unexplainable stuff. And I don't want to blast anybody in particular, so I'm not going to say any names, but I had a conversation about this exact story, this news story with the kid from Indiana. And they said, oh, people get bullied all the time. Who cares? What? Like, yeah, people got bullied all the time, but the suicide epidemic wasn't like this. Like, people weren't just dropping each other or dropping themselves like this, let alone like not, pre-18-year-olds. Now, when I was growing up in high school, there was a growing instance. I was even around it. One of my good friends, his older brother, did it when he was younger and still in school with me. It's awful stuff. But even then, a 19-year-old doing it when I was so I'd have been 2013, 2014, was just like, whoa. Like, people were like, what? Like, that's why? There's no way, he was so young. Oh my gosh. Now a 10-year-old does it 10 years later and people are like, he should have been tougher. Now, I guess I could pick a different thing. I think he should have been tougher too, but it's not in any way putting blame on him for what was happening to him or saying like the reason why he did this was because he wasn't tough enough. I think that might be more in the macro aspect because of the emasculation and feminization of society. We're building and generating men who are just simply incapable to deal with these things when they experience them because, maybe in his head, he was like fighting back wasn't even an option, right? He was like, if I fight back, I'll be a toxic male. I can't do that. Like, I don't know, right? But it seems like this is a growing theme of children taking themselves out or having just blatantly very, very evil things happening to them. And I think to me, it's just a very, very encapsulated way to say we're at the tail end of the rat utopia experiment with the American empire, combined with the fact that it's the eschatology of what is in the Christian doctrine. Pair those things together, and you're getting my worldview, which is what it seems to be. We're like on these tethered ends of a dress, where one thread's been getting pulled for forever, and now we're on the final end as we're watching the thread rip through the last two lines of fabric. That's where it feels like we're at for me. Like, it feels like we are. The purity of the world is so gone that now that's why we're seeing children being attacked so much and so heavily, is because women out here beyond the age of 18, for the most part, they're not pure. Most men aren't pure beyond the age of, 12 years old at this point in most societies because of how they're raised and lack of being raised. If I was to say one big point about this entire thing, it would be exactly what this commenter said, with what Michael had said, which was, if you send your child to public school and you're not completely vigilant, you are entirely complicit in the abuse. Entirely. I think if you are in a situation financially where you just like, it's something you must do, it's the burden is on you to do all of the vetting, ensuring, I mean, at this point, it's got to be every single day. And that means you got to put in the extra work to look at what they're doing, what are their assignments, what are their grades doing. You got to make sure you're checking in on their health, checking on their day, talking to their parents. And that's like an extra job. But I think that's would be what was required of you if you are in a financial situation where you can't escape the public school system, or depending on your region. And I think even in that spot, you should look at it temporarily and do everything in your power to get to a position where you can either homeschool or send your kid to a charter school or a Christian school or a private school, something along those lines, where you have more power and more sway over what's happening in your child's life. So to put a wrap on that one, we'll move on to the next one. I know it's a rough story. I didn't want to show the parents crying either because it's all around just very, very rough. So let's go to Harrison Bucker.